Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Friday, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at the next series of eclipses that we will be receiving as the nodes of the moon are going to change signs. They will be changing signs in the early part of next year. And then we have a good year and a half worth of eclipses in new signs, Pisces and Virgo. However, the eclipses around the next nodal movement follow some really interesting patterns. So I want to show you some of them. We're going to look at the dates and timing of all of the eclipses. And what's really a little bit of a funky next period of eclipses, as a lot of the eclipses jump out of sign. Although the nodes will be in Pisces and Virgo, a lot of these eclipses are going to jump out of sign, which is going to make for some really interesting dynamics in terms of how we end up delineating those things in our charts and how we end up experiencing the eclipses. So I'm going to show you the technical details, the dates of the eclipses, which ones fall in Virgo and Pisces, which ones fall out of signs. And then we're going to speak broadly about 5 major themes we can watch for with the nodes of the moon changing signs into Virgo and Pisces overall. So that is our agenda for today. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Yesterday, I record these a little bit in advance. Yesterday, we crossed the 70,000 subscriber mark. Thank you, everybody, for helping us double our monthly subscriber average. Let's keep it up. I would like to see if we can get this channel to 100,000. I've heard you get some kind of little plaque or something. I've heard rumors that you get some kind of prize. So we'll see if we can get there. Maybe in the next year or two, we can reach 100,000 subscribers. That would be amazing. But anyway, thank you all for listening and helping us grow our business and community. We really do appreciate all of you. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. You guys know we're in promotion mode right now for 2 different things this month. One is our monthly webinar series, which is coming up again. I'm going to take you over to the website and show you the next talk. So if you go to events, click on live talks. By the way, we will have the next 3 talks posted shortly. I've got 3 more coming up for you for November, December, and January. The Myth of Astrological Compatibility is on October 17th. If you want to come and hear me talk about what I really think works versus what I really think does not work when it comes to astrological compatibility. There are a lot of techniques that people learn when they first start studying astrology that honestly just don't work. Or they don't work very well. And I'm going to give you some simple tips for how to look at compatibility across birth charts and give you some tips for being successful with how you observe compatibility in charts. So whether you're someone who just is interested in your own compatibility with a partner or you're a practitioner, this is going to be accessible for everybody. Get it recording if you can't attend the live webinar afterwards. So check that out. Go to the courses page. Astrology for Beginners is the absolutely brand spanking new beginners class. It's all recorded content. It's about 10 hours. It'll prep you for our year 1 course. That's only if you're have 0 background in astrology and you want to get to know it. I would recommend starting there. Otherwise, check out the first year course. At the end of today's video, after I sign off, there's an informational video about the first year program. 1-year immersion into ancient Hellenistic astrology. Everything there on the course page kind of explains what the course is about. And at the bottom, you'll find our pre-registration sale is open until October 15th. So you have a little bit more time to save on the program with this pre-registration sale, but also check out the need-based tuition assistance. If you're someone who wants to take the course and you need a little help to make it happen because you're on a fixed or limited income, receiving disability, you're a single parent, whatever the case might be, we have that sliding scale there so that you can choose a monthly tuition rate that works for your budget. We want to make sure that nobody's priced out. And then we ask everybody else, if you can afford it, please use our sale prices or use one of our payment plans or what have you. In this way, really, I think everyone wins, because then we're making sure that a spiritual topic like astrology is accessible for people who have a lot of different socioeconomic circumstances going on. So that's a big part of our mission at Nightlight. Of course, our Kickstarter is also coming up at the last 40 days of the year, where a lot of things that we do will be on sale as we rally support for the channel and for supporting all the things we do, like our sliding scale pricing. And pretty soon, also, our donation-based clinic will be launching. We are in the final stages of getting that prepared, so a little update there too. All right, let's get into our astrology for the day. I am going to shift screens here, and what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the eclipses that are coming up from this moment forward. Okay, so we've just had a solar eclipse in Libra. Here's our solar eclipse in Libra. Wednesday of this week. We looked at the grand water trine yesterday. So what we're really looking at now is, well, where are the eclipses heading next? You can always tell where the eclipses are going to be because of the location of the nodes of the moon. So I'm going to eliminate everything from our perspective except for the nodes of the moon and the sun and the moon. This way we can track the development of the nodes and eclipses that are coming next. So as the sun moves, you want to see new or full moons forming in close enough proximity. Typically, it's within 18 degrees, I believe. I haven't checked that math in a while, but I believe it's within about 18 degrees of the nodes of the moon that you see a new or a full moon and you get a solar or lunar eclipse. And so we can always tell where the eclipses are going to land by where the nodes of the moon are. Now, here you can see that in the early part of 2025, the nodes of the moon change signs by mean node measurement. There are mean and true node measurements of the nodes of the moon. It doesn't matter a whole lot, but by mean node measurement, it's the late January of 2025 that the nodes shift into Pisces and Virgo. Right at the time of the new moon in Aquarius on January 29th, they shift signs. Now we have eclipses most likely forming in these two signs, although sometimes they can form out of sign, and that's what I want to show you in just a little bit. So we're going to track out all of the eclipses that are happening as the nodes are in these signs. And first, I want to show you this one. So right here, this is not on NASA's website. Typically, that's where I go to double check that the astronomical definition of an eclipse is being satisfied. We have a new moon with the north node in Pisces. Has a little bit of the feeling of a solar eclipse only because it's a new moon in the sign that the north node has just moved into, but this is actually not an eclipse. So it's just outside of the range, I guess, for what satisfies the condition. So let's move forward a little bit. And we get to our first eclipse of the Virgo Pisces nodal shift. Although remember, we just here in late September, mid-September, we had a lunar eclipse in Pisces that was out of sign. So we have already had one lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces that was out of sign. Once the nodes move into sign, this is the first one we get that's actually across the Virgo Pisces axis, which is a lunar eclipse very close to the node, right? It's about 3 degrees off when it makes that lunar eclipse. It's a pretty potent eclipse on that level. And this is on March 14th of 2025. So our first eclipse will be a lunar eclipse in Virgo if you're not counting the Pisces eclipse that was out of sign. All right, let's keep moving forward because we have another one coming up on March 29th. On March 29th, isn't this interesting? Here we have a solar eclipse forming with the north node in Pisces, but it's close enough proximity out of sign in Aries that the eclipse is actually occurring. And so we have a solar eclipse in March of 2025 that continues the trend of eclipses in the sign of Aries. I always find it interesting when you have the eclipses out of sign because it ends up blending a little bit of the evolutionary intention, you might say, of whatever node it's close to alongside of its own intentions in the sign and house that it's in. So that becomes fascinating. But notice in the early part of 2025, Pisces is getting Pisces is getting cheated. We don't have so anyway, we move forward and let's go to September. This is when the next eclipses occur in 2025. And when we get to September, we go to the 7th. Here we are. And here on the 7th, we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces. So it's not until September of 2025, which was September of 2024, that we had a Pisces lunar eclipse. And now we're repeating a Pisces lunar eclipse, no solar eclipse in Pisces, all the way around until September 7th of 2025. So there is your next Pisces eclipse. I mean, the node is almost halfway through Pisces and it has not gotten a solar eclipse in that sign. Isn't that interesting? So if we go forward just a little bit, then we get a solar eclipse in Virgo on the 21st, but it's very late, right? It's almost out of sign again. It's at the 29th critical or anaretic degree of Virgo on September 21st of 2025. And the nodes are now like just about halfway through their transit of Pisces and Virgo. And what we've had so far has been a lunar eclipse in Virgo, a solar eclipse in Aries, a lunar eclipse in Pisces, a solar eclipse in Virgo. So Virgo is definitely getting more attention than Pisces so far. All right, well, if we move forward, surely there must be something for Pisces. Surely we must get a solar eclipse, right? But actually, no. If we go forward to February 17th, at the time of the next solar eclipse, look at what's happening. Oh my gosh. We have a 28-degree out of sign solar eclipse in Aquarius. The solar eclipse in Aquarius, February 17th, means we are not getting a solar eclipse in Pisces. With the North Node, that is a big deal because those North Node solar eclipses tend to be about very big openings. And for whatever reason, we're getting lunar eclipses in Pisces, which can kind of like clear the plate, bring finish or resolution or completion to things. So the direction of the North Node, which generally indicates, kind of an uncharted territory that we're being called in the direction of, a desire that's unfulfilled, and we have to explore it, that we're getting a lot of signatures of things that are reaching completion or resolution from the past, which maybe in turn are opening some new doors. But there's much more lunar eclipse energy around the North Node the entire time it's transiting through Pisces, which is just fascinating because the North Node really does activate so much more strongly with solar eclipses, because solar eclipses tend to be about those major new beginnings. And the North Node is also pointing us in the direction of things we're wanting to newly explore or focus on in a sort of future oriented way. It's like, let's go in that direction. Well, solar eclipses are great for opening that up, but instead of solar eclipses, we see out of sign solar eclipses and we see lunar eclipses. It's just a fascinating little detail. Honestly, I have no idea how that's going to play out, but I have zero doubt that it will play a role in exactly how we're experiencing these things. So when I was looking at this, I just thought, that is worth mentioning and starting to think about and meditate on. All right, well, we go forward just a little bit. Now we're going to see on March 3rd of 2026, here we have our next lunar eclipse in Virgo. So Virgo is getting plenty of love, solar and lunar eclipses all around. Pisces is getting skipped over. It's just really, really interesting. All right, let's go forward to the next solar eclipse, which will be in August of 2026. And at this time, what I find really interesting about this one is that is the very last moments of the nodes of the moon in Virgo and Pisces, and we have an out of sign solar eclipse in Leo with the south node of the moon. What? Like, what is that about? So there again, we have out of sign solar eclipse with the south node this time. And so it's just funny how for whatever reason, this transit of the nodes through Pisces and Virgo features a lot of out of sign eclipses. And we have one last eclipse on the 27th. This is worth mentioning. See, here we go. Here's the 27th. And this is a lunar eclipse that will fall out of sign in Pisces. So even though the nodes have now moved to Aquarius and Leo, we're getting an out of sign lunar eclipse in Pisces. This will be the last one on August 27th. I don't expect any of you, let alone myself, to understand what the significance of all of those out of sign eclipses are, or the fact that we're not getting one solar eclipse in Pisces squarely the entire time that the nodes of the moon are in Pisces and Virgo. But I have no doubt that I will be able to look back on this in a year and a half and have an understanding of what it meant that we had North Node in Pisces with only lunar eclipses or out of sign solar eclipses in and around that North Node. Like that's going to play a role. I've just never seen it before, so I'm like, that's going to be worth tracking. All right, so apart from the galaxy brain details of our next eclipse period, I want to give you 5 themes that I think you can watch for, very practically speaking, with the nodes of the moon moving through these signs. Because regardless of where the eclipses land, the evolutionary trajectory of the soul, as I've been discussing with my friend Ari, who's an evolutionary astrologer, is in part we delineate part of that purpose, I should say, through the placement of the nodes. So when they are coming into 2 new signs and 2 new houses in your birth chart, by the way, we'll be doing horoscopes for all of these eventually. We have new sets of themes that become a critical part of the exploration that the soul is making as it is growing and continuing to evolve. So those themes across the Pisces Virgo axis, I'm just broadly defining in terms of 5 categories. 1, surrender versus control. Now, don't think that just because the North Node is in Pisces that it's going to be all about surrender and letting go of control just because the South Node's in Virgo. There is going to be a back and forth, a kind of dialogue between the tensions of the nodes always. And one way in which that tension manifests across Pisces Virgo is that the Piscean watery energy tends to be about surrender. And it is about allowing something bigger than ourselves or something magical or otherworldly or spiritual or mystical or intuitive to guide or take the reins. And that's one of the most beautiful qualities that's always at play or being explored in the sign of Pisces, that greater sense of surrender to larger powers, gods, goddesses, the intuition, emotions. On the other hand, Virgo is so much about getting a handle on what I can be in control of, which is not a bad thing. Each one of us have a sphere of influence that we live in every single day, and understanding how to operate within our sphere of influence, kind of understanding the measure of our willpower, like how much do I have? How much control do I have? What can I control and what can't I control? How do I get things done effectively? How do I be good? Or how do I be effective at the skills that I have? These kinds of concerns are about what I can control, that I have some say over, and doing the best I can and being most effective and organized and useful and sort of clear and clean with the demonstration of what control I do have. So those are Virgoan things that are very different from the sense of like, well, I'm riding the currents of life. I'm following the music of Pan, I'm listening to the currents of the Tao, So these two archetypal domains are in a kind of tension with one another, and they're going to be working back and forth as the nodes of the moon change signs. So we start preparing ourselves for that right now. Number 2 would be purity versus forgiveness. See, one of the things that happens with Virgo is Virgo sits on the edge of the entry to the underworld. And so the symbol of the virgin goddess or the young woman is important because there is a way in which, whether it's it doesn't matter what gender it is, right? But it's just the idea of youth and of the initiation into darkness. The darkness could be your own shadow, which is not necessarily evil or bad, but it's something that you have to integrate and understand and accept. So much of Virgo has to do with initiation into adulthood, into the underworld, into the shadow, and making room for it or accommodating it. And if you can't, then there's a way in which you can be driven sort of mad, or you can become neurotic. So for example, a very, very common Virgo theme that many psychological astrologers have written about in the past 100 years, has been the theme of young women with strong Virgo placements developing eating disorders. Like it's common enough that astrologers talk about it. Like it's a thing. Doesn't mean you're doomed. Doesn't mean in a lot of people, this becomes their spiritual awakening. Now, my wife, who has talked about this very publicly and openly on her own YouTube channel as an herbalist, she has Saturn in Virgo, had some strong activations of that Saturn in Virgo when she was a teenage girl, and went through, I think it was about a year of her life where she was struggling with an eating disorder. And then she ended up finding yoga, which was all about accepting who you are, your body, that you are beautiful regardless of, what you think you look like in the mirror. Just, it was about self-acceptance. There it is. Purity versus forgiveness. I have to be good. I have to look good. I have to be right. I have to get it right. Those pressures are real pressures that are part of life that aren't necessarily bad. But if we don't have some ability to accept ourselves and accept failure and faults and lack of control, and we don't have some way of reconciling ourselves with the fact that we can't be perfect, then we tend to be so self-critical that we can actually harm ourselves. And so the distinction in Virgo and Pisces is often between what can I do to be good, pure, effective, beautiful, clean, healthy, whole. And then also, how do I forgive myself for that part of me that gets a little wild or that gets a little crazy or that messes up or that, lets my hair down. So the juxtaposition between having to be pure and good and also allowing ourselves to be overwhelmed by elements of life that are wild and less controlled, and to also forgive and accept ourselves for faults and flaws and the existence of darkness. That juxtaposition is very strong across the Virgo Pisces axis. So we're going to start working with those themes. Escape versus service and duty. So we have in Pisces that love or like the need for bliss and happiness and almost an otherworldly level of sensual, romantic, mystical enjoyment of life. Pisces is so good at tapping into that. At the same time, if it goes too far with those qualities, which may, like, for example, those qualities may be needed if you are overly practical and rigid and dry and controlled, then you need to bliss out a little bit, right? So there's the tension again. On the other hand, if the Piscean qualities become escapist, if it's like trying to bypass or check out of reality in some way, which could happen through alcohol, or it could happen through avoidance or daydreams or illusions or fantasies, then that practical call toward actionable service, duty, responsibility, controlling ourselves, being conscientious about what we're doing and whether or not we're making a positive contribution to other people. It's a very conscientious, practical sign that cares about things like doing the right thing, being useful, being helpful, not checking out, even to the extent that it may actually diminish the need for bliss or happiness, which then we get pulled in the opposite direction and we say, hey, got to let go, got to surrender, got to let in the bliss energy a little bit more. So there's the tension again. Sensuality versus rationality. Venus is exalted in Pisces, fallen in Virgo. Mercury is exalted in Virgo, fallen in Pisces. Ancient astrologers said that's because these two signs and the planet that are exalted and fallen in these two signs, in Venus and Mercury, suggest that there is a rational versus sensual dichotomy at play across these two signs that create a tension. So Virgo is a sign that is about that practical, conscientious, hardworking, meticulous, very thoughtful, and I think even what do I want to say, like service oriented. It's a Mercury that wants to do the right thing and learn to be good or better at what it does, to control what it can control. And then there's this sensual, romantic, otherworldly mystic. It's like a spa over there in Pisces. It's like, why don't you set down your little toolkit, Virgo, and come and get a foot rub and soak in the hot tub, So think about just the general dichotomy between sensuality and rationality. If sensuality goes too far, then it can get lost in delusional, escapist fantasies, right? And so again, that practical, meticulous, careful, thoughtful, rational, discerning, or discriminating quality of Virgo becomes very important. Number 5 would be the loss of innocence and redemption. So sometimes Virgo is also thought of as a sign that initiates a person into adulthood, often through the experience of their own faults, flaws, shadows, losses of innocence. And you know what? Sometimes those experiences can be painful or traumatic. And then there are stories of redemption, of being healed or of being lifted up or of being made whole again after what feels like a fall, right? Virgo is taking us into the gateway of the autumn equinox, the fall. And so the picture of the virgin goddess, the young woman, is important because it's a sign of the loss of innocence. And yet that loss of innocence is archetypal. It's not good or bad. It just is. It's a part of our experience, as is the feeling of being made whole again and of redemption. I was once lost, but now I'm found. That's actually an archetypal experience that is, it just pervades nature, it pervades the cosmos. And so we have to be able to accept and work with the tension between moments where we lose our innocence, or we disappoint ourselves, or we're less than pure, or we get something wrong, or we can't control something. And it truly may represent something of a moral failure, or a lack of judgment, or poor boundaries, or something like that. But then there's an experience of healing and redemption. And when we come out the other side, we carry responsibility. We carry all of the Virgoan qualities with a lighter touch. We want to be, in a sense, working the tensions of opposites all throughout all layers and levels of astrology, because working those tensions helps us to be always conscientious of the opposite, the hidden opposite contained in whatever archetype we're in the midst of. So if you're in a Virgoan part of your day, or you're in a Virgoan state of mind, that you are very conscientious because of those experiences you've had of the loss of control and the need for redemption, that you can carry control in a way that is lighter and more forgiving, right? And that's actually a sign of mastery in most crafts. Think about a jazz player who's very controlled and meticulous. If they hit a wrong note, they know how to be very forgiving and incorporate and work with that wrong, quote unquote, wrong note. I've used that example many times before in my talks, but it's just so basic. So we all will be learning the art of how to be Virgoan with a hidden seed of Pisces, and how to be Piscean with a hidden seed of Virgo. That's really the goal of the tension of the opposites all across the entire history of astrology. All right, I'm going to leave it there for today. After I sign off, please stick around to hear more about the Year 1 program that starts on November 16th. Need-based tuition is available if you want to take advantage of that. Our sales run through October 15th for the class. Hope to see you there. The other thing that I will say, just very briefly, is if you have any questions about anything you hear about the course, please email us info@nightlightastrology.com. Any and all of those eclipses we unpack today, we will be looking at in detail each one as we go through them. So again, I just like to, in the beginning, sometimes I just like to just put everything out on the table and look and be like, wow, look at that. No solar eclipses in Pisces. And then I can start meditating on these things. And often over time, and being in the actual experience of the eclipses, I'll start to make sense of some of those nuances and subtleties. So that's how I work as an astrologer. But I can guarantee you that we will be reflecting on that weird lack of solar eclipses in Pisces as the eclipses in Virgo and Pisces unfold. That's going to be a really interesting piece. So mark that down somewhere so you don't forget it. All right, that's it. Have a good one, everyone. Bye. Hey, everyone. I'm glad that you're sticking around to hear more about the Year 1 program that's coming up. The program starts on November 16th of this fall. And I am here today to tell you all that the program includes and why I think you really like it if you're thinking about studying astrology. So a few practical details about the course as well. The class begins November 16th, as I mentioned, but it takes place on Saturdays from 12 to about 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 11 to 2 Central, and typically classes are about 2 hours long. Sometimes they run over with Q&A and discussion, but you can always plan for about 2 hours and you won't miss any of the actual lecture content for the day. You may have to duck out a little early if Q&A or discussion is extending. Sometimes it does, which is why we say between 2 and 3 hours, but typically it's around 2. All of the classes are recorded, so if you can't attend live, you are more than welcome to watch the recordings at your own pace and on your own time. You have lifetime access to the recordings, and everything is housed on a student website. I want to actually give you just a little preview of what that student website looks like. So I am going to open up my own version of Thinkific, which is the platform that we use. So here's some of my courses. These are all the Nightlight courses I teach. You can see on the page. But I'm going to tune into, let's go to Nightlight 28, which is the section that began in June of 2024. So here you're going to see that we have orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar. Everything that you need to know how to access the course is there, and you'll have a version of this in your own panel that you get set up with when you enroll. And then our lessons are laid out. So lesson 1, we have the video, the audio, the slides, the transcript. We have the Q&A box transcript so you can see what people were saying in the chat box during class. We have flashcards. We have a workbook. We have planet and sign glyph flashcards. We have bonus material, videos that we like from YouTube that we link you to. Say, check this video out, check that video out. They go along with some of the things we talked about in class. So every lesson has material for you to go as far as you want with, but the main thing is the video, audio, slides, transcript, etc. are all listed there so that you can download and watch it on your own time if you can't attend live. Again, the live classes do happen on Saturdays for this cohort, starting November 16th. That is our first day of class. And then going forward, it always meets on Saturdays, and we give you the class schedule to map out. And the breaks that we have, the study sessions that we have, everything's mapped out on the class calendar for you. So those are just a few practical details that, just to kind of start us off with. So I'm going to take you over to the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And I'm going to share with you some information about the program and sort of walk you through what it includes and what you can expect. So it is an almost year-long program. We typically finish between 10 and 11 months out of the year. It can depend a little bit on some of my teaching and scheduling, because sometimes I teach at conferences and it may delay some of our modules by a week or something like that. But it's typically around 10 to 11 months that the program lasts. So we call it our first year program. At Nightlight, we have a program for absolute beginners. You may want to check that out if you are like brand spanking new. That would be 8 to 10 hours of content that's really meant to set you up for the first year course. We sort of assume that if you're coming into the first year program, you already know a little bit about astrology. For example, you have some familiarity with the signs, planets, and houses. Maybe you know what aspects are, but you want to learn more about what they are. But if you are really at the very total entry level space, then try Astrology for Beginners. And when you take that, you could do that right away and then join the first year course in November, and you'd be perfectly set up for it. But anyhow, in this program, over the course of about a year, we work through 30 lessons that I lead. And those lessons are all 2 to 3 hours each, including lecture, a little break, and a Q&A portion where we open up for people to come on mic and camera and ask questions and have an interactive discussion about the material for the day. The program is broken into modules that cover a variety of topics in ancient Hellenistic astrology. That is the earliest era of horoscopic astrology. And so if you don't know a lot about the different schools of astrology, Hellenistic astrology is going to be the kind of astrology that you see a lot of astrologers practicing nowadays. It's become more popular in the last 30 years or so. And that is due to the fact that a lot of ancient texts with some of the original techniques of horoscopic astrologers were recently translated into the English language, and it's created this renaissance in terms of the use of ancient approaches to astrology. I have a background in modern psychological, archetypal, and evolutionary astrology, and so of course I bring those things to the table, but the course is primarily focused on the excavation of ancient techniques and the spiritual philosophy that ancient astrologers also espoused. The closest thing that I can tell you to what that looks like is, ask this question: do you resonate with the philosophy that you hear me take on my YouTube channel? If so, then you're going to love this course in terms of its philosophical and spiritual approach, because the spiritual approach to astrology that I teach is really at the heart of the program. And that's a big part of my life. I approach astrology from a spiritual standpoint. It doesn't belong to one religion or one particular school of thought, but you will hear me talking about things like the soul, the belief in the transmigration of the soul. You'll hear me talk about the need to be soul-centered in our client approach to counseling in astrology. You'll hear me have an appreciation for psychological dimensions of astrology, but also ancient astrology is really very, very good at developing your predictive capacity. We talk about what kinds of predictions are appropriate, how to make appropriate predictions, how to be the right kind of astrologer for our clients without inducing any fear. So there's a lot of care that goes into the development of this craft. But ancient astrology is really amazing when it comes to honing your predictive abilities. And then what you'll find is in this program, there's also a pretty significant emphasis on the psychological dimensions and client care. Anyhow, we go into the roots of ancient Hellenistic astrology and its techniques in this program, and the 30 classes are broken into modules. We work through the history and philosophy we work through planets, houses, signs, aspects, essential and accidental dignities. And then we get into approaches to the delineation of natal charts. And then at the end of the program, almost a third of the program is dedicated to live client readings, where you're going to see me meet with a person and apply what we've been studying for an hour-long reading. We take a break, we come back, and then we workshop. How did I do that? Why did I make these choices? How did I handle this or that came up in the reading? And it becomes easily the favorite part for most students of the entire program, because by that point, you've got so much theory that you're really ready to see it put into action. We alternate those live client practice sessions with hands-on practice, where students get to bring chart questions into class that we work on. And that's also something that most people really love. A lot of people will look at the curriculum and say, well, I already know planets, houses, and signs and aspects and dignities. But not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology, because the approach that ancient astrologers had to these topics is vastly different from the approach that modern astrologers take. So you will be, in a sense, relearning basic things in a brand new way. And I think a much more enriching, deep, and philosophically clear way. It's really nice to know the why behind things. This program and Hellenistic astrology in general is very good at helping you understand the why behind everything that we do. Also, it's really important to participate when you study astrology in a living lineage. So one of the reasons I don't let people jump ahead to my second or third year programs is because I want you to be entrained to a lineage, a particular way of doing things that comes from an astrologer who has a very living, busy, active practice and who has had teachers themselves. I think that's important for astrological learning. That's the model that my own learning take, and so that's what I really want students to take away from my programs. Anyhow, so all of that aside, the second year program focuses, after we build our understanding of the basic delineation techniques of birth charts, in year 2, we move into timing techniques, which is all about when the karma of a birth chart is going to be active and expressing itself throughout the course of a lifetime. That's year 2. Year 3 focuses on the development of counseling skills at a much deeper level. And then we also have a 1-year horary program, which is about the development of a very specific predictive technique that can be a really amazing tool to add to your kit. That is 4 years worth of training programs that we have. However, I want to mention that many people take our classes just for the sake, purely for the sake of their own personal growth. Taking these programs is very much like being taught how to utilize a technology that for yourself will be deeply useful for the rest of your life, and maybe for close friends or family members around you. Many people come through our programs taking that benefit away and will study through all 4 years of our programs with no intention of being professional. This is their hobby. This is a spiritual tool that will have it will pay dividends over a long period of time. However, many people without the intention to practice come into our courses and discover that they're actually good at it and may end up reading for other people part-time. And then there are students who are deeply, intensely motivated to practice for other people. And it is not that our programs really make those people successful. Our programs contribute to your development, but it really is that some people have a calling to practice professionally. And these programs are designed to give you all the tools you need to develop that confidence and to develop a really coherent set of tools and to entrain yourself to a lineage, which you can also develop your own unique style out of. So those are some of the kinds of people that take our programs, you might say. So the 30 classes on the year are then broken into modules. And in between modules, we have 2 course directors who are present in all of the classes, and they lead breakout tutoring sessions where you can come in and review or ask questions about the module that we've just completed, which is usually anywhere between 2 and 3 classes each. So those breakout study sessions led by our tutors are outside of the 30 classes and very useful. A lot of people like to attend those because they also offer opportunity for community and just lively conversation. We also have 12 online webinar classes led by guest teachers that we host throughout the year. Those are free, and if you can't make them live, they're all uploaded into your student folder. You also have an interactive group forum discussion staffed with tutors who typically respond to questions that you have about the material within 24 hours. So if you can't attend a tutoring session or you just have a random question on a Tuesday night, you can pop it in there and you'll get an answer. We also have a ton of bonus material, optional quizzes, flashcards, tons of supplemental material that is there to help people go as deeply as they want. We have a reading list that is expansive. And that reading list, we don't expect anyone to accomplish. It's more so a resource that we give you saying, here, if you want to know all the things I've read, if you want to know all the things that I love, if you want to know all the things I recommend, here's a master list of everything for each lesson. You could go, PhD level if you wanted to and read thousands and thousands of pages, or you might find that there's just one extra book that looks really interesting and you want to pick it up. But we pride ourselves on making sure you have a ton of resources. You have lifetime access to all the class recordings. You can email our staff or me throughout the year with questions, and my staff will also defer to me in the case that they don't know the answer to a question. So that is what the program includes. It starts November 16th. If you would like to join, at the bottom between now and October 15th, our early bird payments are available. So that saves you some money off the cost of the course. There is a 12-month installment plan that is cheaper than our normal plan, a one-time payment that's significantly cheaper than our normal one-time payment. So you get these little sales that we do until October 15th. We also have need-based tuition assistance. So if you are someone who would like to take this program, but you are on a fixed or tight budget, we have an application there. Click apply now. Just tell us what you need. We give a range. We say between this dollar amount and this dollar amount, what can you spend? And then we set you up with a plan for that tuition number per month. And that is available for anyone. We ask people to apply early because those spots are limited, but we are really accommodating. We try to make sure that nobody's priced out of a spiritual education. Like, this topic should be very accessible for people because I believe that the divine is speaking through the sky, and like anyone should have access to understanding what it's saying, right? So anyway, that is a bit about the program. I hope that this has been useful for you. If there are any questions you have, you can look over the curriculum content on the page, on the year one page. There's more information there. Check out the FAQ section for more questions. Email us info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see some of you in class soon. I think this is going to be a really powerful program because it's also starting right as Pluto's moving into Aquarius. And within the year, we're going to have a Uranus-Pluto trine with Uranus in Gemini. These Aries signatures and the connection between Uranus and Pluto make for a very powerful year to advance our understanding of astrology. So it's a great election year for studying. And I hope to see some of you in class soon.